I love concrete. I love concrete because you can do anything with it, and boy does it last. But it can be tricky and it can be expensive. So right now I'm going to show you how to do concrete on the cheap, how to mix it up and place it with the tools that you probably have on hand or you can get for very little money, and how to put a decorative finish on the top that you expect only a pro could pull off, but actually almost anybody can pull it off. I built this crazy little form for a couple of reasons. This is going around a faucet. This piece of oak dowel creates an opening for the pipe to come up. This board creates the opportunity for it to come apart into two pieces and then enclose the pipe. You'll see that in just a second. It may be that you don't even pour inside of a form, but if you are using a form, you're going to want the form to come off. You are going to want to strip the form, which means that you're going to need some kind of a form release. Now, it can be diesel, it can be motor oil, it can be an expensive form release, or in this case, it can be Crisco. Everybody's got it, it goes on easy, and you just put it on knowing that that makes that form slick, and the concrete is not going to get a good tight hold of it. You got to be careful though, or it'll make your cookies taste funny. So we're using two different mix designs, two different halves. We've got the standard Saccharete 4000 PSI high strength, slow setting. Sometimes it's frustrating, and they're fast setting. This stuff is no joke. And if you don't have time, this is tough to use, but it's risky. Let's see how fast it actually goes. So you guys have seen me do this sort of thing without a mask, but today I'm going to be a good boy. And besides that, cement in your lungs, yeah, that's not that great.
It's easy to put water in. It's hard to take water out. I did not fall. Here's my preferred way to mix in a wheelbarrow, with a mud hoe, pulling it toward you. A little more water, a little more water.
So if you're mixing 3 bags, and you can generally mix 3 bags in a big wheelbarrow, you put some water in first. So the bottom of the wheelbarrow is wet, so you don't get those corners down on the bottom that don't mix. See the beauty of that hoe? It lets the material go through to mix. Now if you make the mistake of making it just too wet, you've got some other bags you can open up and shake some dry material in. All right, that's about right. Let's see how far that goes. Yeah, it's going to take most of another bag, but that gives us a good spot to put some rebar in. About halfway, somewhere around the midpoint. Let's mix one more bag.
So if you don't have a hoe, a short-handled, a D-handled square point works pretty good. But either way, you're going to get your pants dirty.
Now obviously, an electric barrel mixer saves labor, but you got to get it there. You got to run the cord. You got to deal with the squeak, squeak, squeak of the thing turning. You got to make sure your kids don't get their finger in there. So for a little bitty batch, and maybe you don't own one. Well, you don't want to rent one if you can mix it by hand, and you almost always can. So this is an example of getting carried away and making it too wet. That is just too high slump. I've got another bag of that high strength. I'm going to go shake in some more and dry that up to maybe like a 6-inch slump or something. That's just too wet. So maybe you do what I did, and you need just part of a bag, and you don't want to cut open the whole thing because maybe you don't. Where it says valve, that's actually kind of a pour spout. You can reach back in there, and they've made this bag so that it will actually let you bring out a little bit at a time instead of opening the whole thing at one shot. Good job, boys. Guessing game. That'll dry it up. So So I'm going to lay this on the top, and I'm going to pat it and consolidate it. I got the rebar in there. Now, rebar is what you always think of for reinforcing to make ferrous concrete. And ferrous concrete is just concrete with iron in it, right? And it's the iron that gives it the tensile strength. Concrete has great compressive strength and almost no tensile strength. Now, if you don't have rebar and you're not fussy and you're not running a camera and it's not really structural, you could put fencing in there, woven wire fence, chain link fence, you know, anything that the concrete can get a hold of to provide tensile strength. Okay, now here is another advantage of a D-handled shovel. You can get a little in there and you can shake it in. See that? You don't have to dump the whole shovel load in one spot. You can shake it, which is really handy around the edges. We're going to check the time. It's 9:24. We're going to assume that that chemical reaction has started, that the water is in contact with the Portland cement, that the silica crystals are beginning to form, crawl out of the matrix, which is the paste, the sand and the cement, and get a hold of the rocks. That's what concrete is. Where's my tube? Here it is. Now, the beauty of a little bitty pour like this is it can't hurt you, and it's light work. So you tap the edges just to get the air bubbles to kind of come together at the face of the form and rise to the top. And speaking of rising to the top, this thing's going to want to float. We'll just keep an eye on it. Now, screeding, striking it off. There's a classic expectation that you seesaw, and yes, you can do that, and see it tends to kind of smooth the top, float it. But if you're working on a pro job, all you do is this. See that? So just kind of keep an eye on how the guys around you are doing it and do it like them. Or a combination of a little side slide. And when you come to an obstacle like a stake on the side of your form, you come by it at an angle and then drop back at the opposing angle or the complementary angle or the supplementary angle, whatever it is, and you just rake it off the edge like that. 9:24, it's when that started. It's doing its thing. The rebar is in there. Now we're going to concentrate on pouring a faster, hotter mix, fast set on the other side.
Fast setting. Mixing with the other stuff, maybe 50-50. Got to get some more water.
When you get it close like this, especially with grout, you can spit in it and it'll be too much. Wood float, strike it a little, tap, tap, tap. You know, if you use a vibrator to consolidate your concrete in a set of forms, it's the vibrator that blows out the forms, because when you vibrate, it liquefies the batch. And so the hydrostatic pressure increases a lot when you stick the vibrator in there. And the same with tapping the face of the forms. It's when you disturb the concrete inside that the pressure increases and things go bad. Why a float? What's the difference between a wood float, a mag float, a trowel? We've got videos about that, and you can watch Dustin Furch pouring concrete all over my channel. But in general, a float is putting the concrete into its shape, okay? It's flattening, it's creating the shape with a float. Whether it's magnesium or wood, you're cutting the material rather than smoothing the material. You're cutting it off to grade. And that's really important. A wood float does the same thing, more of it, because the wood pulls more material. It tends to drag the material around, which is what you're trying to do at this point. You're getting it to an elevation. See, now that's a wet screed. I have elevations on two sides. And you can use the elevation of the concrete, except I dug a hole right there. It's a wet screed, where you're not running your float or your screed on a form, you're running it on the surface of the concrete that you've already got cut to grade. And that is the advantage of a wood float, that it will carry more material with it than a magnesium float will. But a magnesium float tends to both cut to grade and smooth. Hi, boys. Get some footage of those boys. Come in here. Come in here, Cyrus and Rusty. Concrete school is open. These are two of my very favorite grandsons. Now, you've seen both these guys when they were this big. Well, look how big they are now. Cyrus, I'm going to make a video using your tool belt there after a while. You guys out here to play today? Yeah. Good, good, good. All right, well, you can watch or whatever you want. So that's a little proud right there. We're going to put the 2x4 in so you can see how close or far off I was. See that? When you're going form to form, you get a flatter surface, but a wet screed will get you close enough to stay alive. So just for the record, this is 100% high strength. It says you can walk on it in 24 hours. This side is, and it went in at 924. This side is about 1/3 high strength and 2/3 fast setting, which it says is set in 30 minutes. So anyhow, we're going to keep track of the time, 9:24, 9:39. I got a little holiday, a low spot right there. Let's put some material in that. So now we wait until the appropriate time. We'll float it some more. We'll edge it at the appropriate time. And then I'm going to show you how to expose the aggregate. Okay, here's the first really graphic test. This has been in 36 minutes. This has been in 16 minutes. See all the bleed water? This is pushing water out the top. And this is using the water in the reaction as fast as it tries to come up. Not only that, but this seems to have grown a little bit. I'm not sure. It could be that this fell. But look, 36 minutes, right? Way too soft to trowel. Look at this, 16 minutes. That's hard enough to trowel. So I'll float it again because we're going to expose this aggregate. So I want to minimize the amount of steel trowel I put on there. Man, that's a lot higher than the other side. So this is one of the lessons. The reasons people can't get their concrete flat or smooth is they don't put it down flat when it's very plastic or pliable, and then they get back on it too soon when it's too soft and you can't trowel it. See, I really can't hardly put an edge mark in this now. It's hard. Well, it's getting well set up in 16 minutes. I better put an edge on there while I can. This is not the right edger, but we're going to play with it. Yeah, that's hard enough that you got to push to move the rock back from the edge. 16 minutes. That makes this fast set ideal for setting posts, that sort of thing. If you had this in a post, you could build on that post right now and not have to give it a second thought. So here's the thing about running an edger. Edgers are what wreck the look of a slab because you can roll it, right? You can roll that edge down or you can roll it down on this side and everybody can see that at the edge. So you try, Dustin tells me, just to leave a line here about like a pencil lead. And if Dustin says it, I believe it. Sakrete Fast Set is no joke. Wipe out the lines. Now look at the difference over here. I try to put this in, and it just falls to the bottom. It's exactly the same way it was when I put it in, almost 40 minutes ago. What a difference. Too soon to do the edge. Look at all that bleed water. Pushing that water to the top. That's an indicator of when it's ready to start finishing, is when the top dries out. You better be thinking about getting on it. So the bag says it sets in 30 minutes. I've reduced this. This is about 2/3 fast set, 1/3 high strength. And we have been 28 minutes right now. And it's ready to trowel. I mean, if you were going to be brooming this, you'd be thinking about getting out Uncle Harry right now. But instead, we're going to expose the aggregate. But look at this stuff that's spilled out. By the way, this is a margin trowel. You got to have one of these. They're just handy. Look at this. "26 minutes. Making it happen. All right, let's mix up some molasses in water and retard or kill the set at the surface and try not to get it over there. Sugar stops the chemical reaction inside of concrete. The hydration, good old sugar, kills it, at least for a while. I like to use molasses because it's good. Good on biscuits, good on concrete. Unsulfured blackstrap molasses, very slowly. The reason I like molasses is because you can see it. It colors the water. It makes it, at least I imagine, it thickens it a little bit. I don't know if that's true. Let's do that. There's not a lot of sugar in here, but it's what we've got. And if need be, we could do a little thing like this with no sugar at all. Oh yeah, there's a little bit of sugar in there. We're trying not to get it over on the other side. And if you're nervous about it, or if your concrete got a little too hard on you before you sugar it, you can take a broom or a brush and sort of stir that top around a little bit. Now you can buy factory-made surface retarders, light, medium, or deep etch, depending on how far down you want to kill the matrix. And it costs money, but it's worth it. It's consistent. You don't have to mess around with the molasses or the sugar water or the soda pop. I was on a job in Las Vegas. Pat Warren was the superintendent for MS Concrete. We were pouring some big spread footings for a little office building. And a concrete truck wheeled in there and ran into a chunk of concrete and broke his front axle. And he had 10 yards on. And so the batch plant sent over a man with, I think, 20 pounds of sugar. And he dumped 20 pounds of sugar into that 10-yard load. Maybe it was more. Hit it with some water and batched it up. And that concrete would never get hard. So at least they didn't lose the drum just because the driver wasn't paying attention. All right, we're going to let that sit there and then maybe do it again. All right, here's the proof of the pudding. This is 1 hour and 20 minutes old, and I could stick my finger clear to the bottom of that if I wanted to. This is 1 hour old, and I would break my finger. I've put the retarder on there. It's hard. Here's how hard it is. Okay, there's a piece that came off the top. It's got a strong initial set. I'm going to wash off the matrix and see if we can expose the aggregate. Now, when you're doing this for real, out in the real world, you keep track of the fact that the concrete is holding the rocks from the bottom and the matrix is washing off of the top. So you don't use much pressure. You just wash gently, and if you have to get a broom, you scrub it. And if you're behind, if it got too hard on you, you can get a wire brush. I mean, if it's really hard, and go to work on it that way. But in general, just a mist. You've watched us do this in a lot of other jobs, bigger pours. Dustin is a master. Look at all the sand come off there, the matrix, which is just coming right off the top. That's what you're getting rid of, is the sand and cement off the top. It's a little overexposed. I mean, the rocks are hanging out there pretty far, but it's certainly good enough for our demonstration. So we're rushing this a little bit. So this is a little bit overexposed. That means the rocks are projecting a little too far, and they'll break out of there over time. But so what? It's in the yard, and the lawnmower is going to roll over it, and it's not an issue, and it's just demonstrating the point that 1 hour from dropping it in the form to exposing the aggregate on a 2/3, 1/3 fast set, high strength, and this is pushing an hour and a half now, and it's too soft to really even trowel. What a difference. All right, it's been 3 hours since we laid this down, 2 hours since we rinsed that off, and it's about as hard as the back of your hand, roughly. Now it's still kind of soupy on the top. It's just slow. But I'm going to go ahead and put some retarder on it. You can kind of see that molasses in there, turning it brown. And I'm just going to kind of work that in a little bit. So the matrix at the very top goes to sleep. And we'll just let the stuff underneath there continue to ripen up. I'm going to put a little more on there for grins. And we'll wait another hour, probably. Well, 4.5 hours later, the regular high-strength concrete is still a little green. I'm crowding it. You can see it's overexposed. Some of the big rocks are coming out. That didn't happen much on this other side. So yes, this is going to work great in the yard. Yes, exposed aggregate is nice. Yes, sugar water kills the hydration at the surface. And yes, Saccrete's a pretty good product. But if time's your problem and you know how to handle it, carefully use the fast setting. And then get ready to be done before lunch. So I've got it in. There was a little shovel work, a little wheelbarrow. It went in pretty good. The grass will grow in here. It'll be fine. Is this something I would give to a client? No, because this side is overexposed. I haven't acid washed it or sealed it, but I don't have to because I know the owner. If you're interested in all of the steps with exposed aggregate, the acid wash, the cleaning, the sealing, check out our Spec House series, check out the Shop Build series for Amanda. In-depth detail with Dustin, the master, doing every single step. And besides that, on the Essential Craftsman Academy, in the Essential Craftsman Academy on Shop Talk, a live Zoom meeting every 2 weeks, we answer concrete questions, and we have saved a few people, maybe like you, from making a big and costly mistake in a concrete pour they were contemplating. If you're interested in that, if you got a big pour coming up, check out the Academy, and I'll meet you in Shop Talk. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.